Is it actually? Yeah. So I'll speak to you about it. Okay. Yeah. I want to be able to see it. In the short term, there's some election data, traditional Bangladesh website, which is pretty nasty format, but I want to get it straight and put into a format that you can analyze. But also, I was pretty curious what kind of stuff to do in Python for
So I hope that gives us all a sense of what some possible projects that we're able to use Python for. But without further ado, cool. This is Joe. Hey, I'm Joseph. I'm a senior at PW, study economics and bit of data science. I like Python quite a bit because it's an open source language, which means, what I like to say the fun way, you built that, I built that, you just steal people's code, call it your own, and away you go. But truthfully, it's a really easy language to learn. White space is a thing. It's intuitive. Syntax is quick. My background, so I mean, I'm in school, right? But internships, been on the hill a bit. Worked in Facebook, the office a bit. Worked at some job marketing firms. Down at a VC startup that's like a cool way to sound is like the Apple Pay of campaigns, but what it really is payment process, which is really unsexy. And I'm working on launching a side project predominantly built in Python Django, which is a dedicated platform to communicate with your representative. Without further ado, let's go through Python. So you saw this on the event page. This is a good way to describe Python. As in, it's so easy, and one character's like, how are you doing this? And the guy's like, dude, I don't know, Python. I imported a library called like Flying, or maybe it was meds I took, whatever it was, enabled me to fly. And that's the truth, is Python has a lot of importable libraries that make it exceptionally easy to manipulate data, import data, etc. We'll walk through all those libraries for the second part of this workshop. But preliminarily, we'll walk through why Python, what is Python, how does it compare to other languages, basics of computer science for the multitude of audiences we have. Anyone that has no programming knowledge whatsoever is going to be able to hopefully stick with us. And if not, raise your hand, ask questions. It's meant to be as informative and interactive as possible. So what is Python, right? It's a coding language called a scripting language that takes advantage of white space and emphasizes single intuitive approach to these problems, and it's object-oriented. What is an object?
I have a question. What do you mean by white space?
Yeah, so you'll see that in a second, but when we begin coding, you'll see that we'll have a word on a single line. The next line will be an indentation, and another word, a single variable, something, will be on the next line. The white space between the indentation, like when you're starting a new paragraph, is white space. The fact that Python takes advantage of white space is distinct from a number of other languages. Good question. So Python is object-oriented. What is an object? Object is something that you make in a computer science language that you're going to be using multiple iterations of. So, for example, you can have an object called house, and every house has 3 features. It has windows, has a door, and has a roof. So whenever you want to instantiate a house, you assign a number of doors, a number of windows, a number of roofs. So, I could have a house, 2 windows, 1 door, 1 roof. Probably doesn't make sense that roof is a variable because you get 1, right? But you could have 1 door, 4 windows. You get the idea. And you can have a collection of objects, and your parallel is kind of like neighborhood, maybe, right? So you'll see we'll make some objects later on when we develop things. But a closed parallel, if you're familiar with methods, is if you have a repeat number of functions you want to run, you might build a function that will handle that repeat operation. So say I want to add Joseph, begin with every single word that I type. So I'm writing Joseph Nelson, Joseph Python, Joseph presentation. I'm doing this kind of random method that says add Joseph to variable, and then we're going to put in a variable, whatever that variable is, Python, presentation, or Nelson. So we'll see that in a second. Why should you use Python and Win? Always? No, it's kind of depends on what you're doing and what your goal is in computer science. I like Python quite a bit because I have a data science sort of background, trying to get better at data science all the time. Python can also be paired with language called Django. The difference between, this is what I'm just going to run through, like, throw a bunch of coding languages that you hear about all the time, you don't really know what they are, and people are always talking about them. So why is that important? Well, no, JavaScript, CSS. Those are all
I select which one I want.
Whenever you see something on the web,
has some information on it that I can just put the message information.
how those elements decided to show you what they're showing you, is back in that stuff. So in your case,
Simplifies life. So here we have the new package.
and it loads you pretty quickly. And the way that everything looks so nice.
Create all the
There's a ton of stuff going on in the back end, which that's like the algorithms and stuff. Back-end languages, I mean, typically you hear Java, full-stack languages like Ruby on Rails, languages like that. So depending on what your goal is, you can probably do it in any language, but some of them are your standard protocol for other things. I guess a big caveat to that is, so front-end technology uses better. So we'll walk through these things, keep on going. What are data types? So data types are single, simple objects that are coded directly into Python. So we'll get into a discussion of different types of data types, but without me telling you some, give me an example of a data type. Richard. Yes. A string, yeah. You know what's going on. So what is a string? An array of characters. Yeah. What is an array? Multiple variables, or are the variables a single type?
What's like a collection of?
It's a collection of a single variable, right? Like you could have an array of an array, and within those arrays there are different variable types. But the point is, an array is a collection of a single variable. But yeah, a string is a collection of characters. It's an array of characters. Characters are a separate variable, which Python doesn't delineate between strings and characters, but languages like Java do. You could have integers. You could have doubles, which is an integer that allocates more memory space. You could have floats, which is the same story, just without more space allocated to that specific integer. Let me ask you this. If a float can store 4.00006 and a integer, when would I want to use a float versus an integer? Let me ask you that question first. Then I'll ask the second question. What is the difference between an integer and a float? Yes, I know you may not know. I've said anything about it. Yeah. The specificity of the decimal point, and even more so, integers cannot have decimal points, right? So, given that, why would I ever have a different data type called an integer? If float can be, 4.0, integer could be 4. Why would I ever instantiate an integer instead of a float? A float can hold everything that an integer can hold. Why? Maybe guess. Less memory, exactly. If I only need to reserve one small bit for an integer, and I want to be as efficient as possible with my memory usage, because that's all that computers are, then I want to be as specific as I can when creating new variables. So, go on to the next slide. So here we have some data types, some variables. Integers, floating point, strings, Boolean, and null. So, some quick notes. Integers, always whole numbers, right? Like the mathematical definition that I thought that great. Counting numbers, their opposites, and 0. Floating points. It's just like it sounds. It's a float, or I guess that's redundant. It's a poor definition. It's something where you run out a decimal point of varying number of length. Integers with a decimal. Strings, which are always going to be collections of characters. You'll notice, though, well, what is this 2.718 in quotes? What? Why is that? Why is that stored as a string? Is that a string? Did I make a mistake? No? Why not? It's in quotes, so it's automatically a string. If I wrote 3 plus this, what's going to happen? Make a guess. It'll concatenate both. If I were in Excel, it would. If I were in Excel, it would. I guess with and. But in Python, it's going to throw me an error. Because Python's going to hear 3, try to do an additive function to a string. Python sees this as 3 plus Joseph. It doesn't do just concatenate 3 Joseph. It goes, you told me to add 3 to a different data type that can't add. So this is a string formatted in quotes. You can't perform mathematical operations on a string formatted in quotes. Boolean, always true, false. Booleans are super useful. Null, which means there's nothing there, right? Yet to take it up. Collections are ways that you organize other objects. We don't use collections a lot in the code we're going to go through, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them. But we will talk about Python dictionaries. They're unique data types of Python. Go to the next slide. So if you're familiar with set theory, you'll already be familiar with these kind of data types. You could have lists, sets, and dictionaries. The definition given for you, right? So what's important here is I want to focus on dictionaries. A dictionary works with key values. So this data type here is a dictionary. If I ask this dictionary for A, what is this dictionary going to give me? Five. That's right. How did you know that? Yeah, kind of. Yeah. It's A is not being defined as 5 here. A is the key that locates where 5 is. So I guess I don't know if this is exactly why this data type took this name, but if you went into a dictionary and went for the definition, right? Definition of a word. So A is the word, 5 is the definition. These are valuable because we can store key value. We can have this complex data type that is relatively efficient when we want to ask our memory for a specific value. So imagine with me for a second here that we don't have the keys. We just have the values. If I want to find the third value, I could say, I could ask for brackets 3 if I know it's at 3, or I could go through and iterate one by one. But if I've created a function where I'm storing every new value under a predefined dictionary or keys that I know is going to be followed, so let's say I have a list of countries, and I want to know the GDP for each of those countries. Perhaps I make a dictionary where I have the country be the key and the value be the GDP for that country. So if I want to know the GDP of the United States, I don't know the exact position where the United States falls in the ordinal list of alphabetical order of countries. So I can't just say, yo, array, I want value at 0.70. Because I don't know necessarily what where the United States is in that list, unless I happen to have alphabetical order memorized where each one occurs. But instead, I can say, your dictionary, I want United States, and it's going to tell me, oh, I know where the United States p-value is. The value of the United States is GDP of X. So dictionaries are very useful. What class is coming in? Sorry. Introduce this. Okay. So guys, we need
Yeah.
you guys find a seat? If you can, find a seat. This is a great turnout. This is awesome.
Yeah, great.
So we're going to keep going at this ridiculously fast rate where things are just flying at you for the value of, within these 5 hours of today and tomorrow, you won't be able to take a course of Python job. What you will be able to do is approach new Python scenarios, go to other people's libraries, go to my GitHub, take my code, and say, I know how to run this, I know what to do with this. And in fact, I can make tiny iterations inside of my own code. And just keep incrementally getting better via stealing my stuff or someone else's stuff. And more importantly, hopefully get you excited about the value that Python offers you as a development language. That's the bigger thing. All right. So actually, basic language structure will become apparent from just going through some code. But the important thing that I want to highlight is comments everything out using hashtags. So you'll see a lot of hashtags in my code that is just me commenting what I'm about to do. And that's good Python practice. I started coding, and for the first few years, I didn't write any comments because comments are dumb. And then I went back, I was like, I don't know what to do my code does. So don't do that. Use comments as soon as you start coding. Next slide. This is the white space. Answer to the white space question. What is white space? This if statement is defined by the following. And if you've ever seen any other language, like say Java or R, you'll see that usually if statements are noted by a beginning with a parenthesis and an ending with a parenthesis, so that you know very explicitly where it began and ends. Well, here the indentation signifies where this if statement begins and ends. So what is this if statement doing? Someone tell me what this if statement is doing. Make a guess.
It's deciding if something is true.
What's that?
Deciding if something is true.
Yeah, so this if statement says if something is true, and then what?
Then it does something.
Then it does something else. That's it. So this is a Boolean value. This is an if statement. This is a method. So we're calling this method. All right, keep going. So these are basic numerical operations. I put this slide here so that you have it for reference more than to go through each of these. Of course, it's important to know how to do basic numeric operations within Python, but the best way to do them is knowing what this sign is more than anything. So, of course, plus, minus, multiply are pretty obvious. Modulo, if you're familiar with that, or power of. Go to the next slide. There's something significant that I want to highlight, especially. Isaac. So, basic condition tests. Within Python, if you want to say, is this true? Is this equal? Is this greater? Is this less? You use double equal sign for testing if something is equal to something else. What do you think would happen if I used a single equal sign? You would assign a value, exactly. So I don't want to do value assignment. I want to see, is this value equal to something else? This is incredibly helpful. The exclamation point equal says does not equal. So if this value does not equal x, then do this. Or when this value does not equal this, then do this. Going back to my example of the dictionary of countries and their GDPs and the dictionary arrangement, so we talked about the key value arrangement where I can call a country name within that data type of a dictionary, it returns the GDP, right? If key value does not equal United States, then maybe I want to assign Iowa does not exist here. Or something that would make much more sense, but would only be the case for countries that are not the United States. So president is not maybe Obama, something like that. Okay, Boolean algebra. We won't use these much in the code. Again, a lot of these slides are meant to be reference guides, and this is like a quick overview of each of these things. So this is an important reference. But know that you can ask for and or not in an if statement. Yeah, that's all I want to say about this slide. Okay, basic control flow. What is control flow? You make an educated guess probably based on the slide behind you.
Controlling the path that the code sort of runs through.
Yeah, so it's like code is no longer just a static single line. It is dependent upon specific features or outcomes or attributes that we're analyzing. So an if statement is control flow because I'm controlling dependent upon x or y being true, false, equaling 10, not being the United States, then do something else. So the value of control flow is especially true for loops. For loop is a really, really important concept in computer programming. A for loop says for each value or for each word, for each something in something, I want something to occur. So that's like a lot of somethings. Let's fill in with a concrete example. Let's say that I have my list of countries and GDPs. For each country, and let's say that like this dictionary is empty, and I haven't assigned the GDPs yet, but I just have a dictionary with a bunch of keys of countries, right? For each country, and then within the for loop, so it's going to start at the first country in my list. Let's just say it's like Algeria. So for each country, do something. And in this case, we're going to add in GDP as null, because we just want a dictionary with a bunch of countries and null values that we will fill in later. So this for loop, what it's going to do is it's going to go for each item in this dictionary that we've given it, add null as the value for the key we're at. Critical thing about the for loop, after it does Algeria, it's going to go back. And it's going to say, is there a country after Algeria? And let's say hypothetically the next country is Chad. So then it goes, okay, so there's another value here, Chad. What am I going to do? I'm going to add null for GDP. Then it's going to go back and say, is there any more countries in this dictionary? And it's going to do that and break at the point at which there are no longer any more values, or keys rather, within the list that we have passed. We'll do this in a concrete example, but this abstract takeaway that I want to hammer home is each time a value appears in an array, a list, something, we're doing something else. For every item, until there's no more items within that list. Other questions about that? Can someone give me an example of using a for loop for something? Like something of value. You're doing an election, right? Can you give an example with elections and a for loop?
Sure, we could maybe compare the vote differential to candidates. They sort of, I don't know, if there were sort of for each election, sort of divide the vote difference between candidates and then output the result.
Yeah. So let's say we have a data set of election results, and in that data set we just have candidate A, candidate B, and we have percentage vote share. You want to write a for loop that says, for each election, if candidate A greater vote share than candidate B. Subtract candidate B's from candidate A's. In other words, if we have the bigger number first, subtract the smaller number from it. Else, subtract A from B and store that in something. And then it's going to do that for every single election. It's going to determine who was the bigger vote winner, and then return by how much. So here's a bunch of if-else statements, control flow statements. So let's say that in this, if we have like an x that is 1, it's going to start here. It's going to say if x is less than 0, then implicit then print x is less than 0. If x equals 0, print x is 0. If x is 1, else if x is 0, print x is 0. Else if x is 1, print x is 1. And it would stop there in our example of x being 1, of course. And then else, print x is greater than 1. So these really sort of unimportant examples, understanding how control flow works will enable you to have a mastery so that you can apply control flow to whatever data set you're interested in. Next slide. Next. Okay. I want you guys to look at this. And I'm going to call on someone to tell me what this does. Oh.
Hope I took the answers out of the book.
Well, yeah. So, what's significant here? We have a list. What's the list called? My list. What is the second value in my list?
This is a trick question.
Just say go. Yeah. So, the second value, according to Python, so if I say my list and I ask for the value at position 2, Python starts counting at 0. So cat is 0, dog is 1, goat 2. And every language starts counting at 0 except R, so don't use R. So yeah, the second value is dog. Python will say if you ask for the value at position 2, it is goat. But anyway, so here we have a for loop. For animal, we can put X here, we can put Y, get real creative, put Z, for something, animal, in, so controller, useful Boolean algebra statement, my list, invented white space, so we know this for loop is all a single statement that's being executed. Print, quote, I have a, quote, plus animal. What's really significant here is we have defined a variable on the fly. That variable is animal. So we could have separately, said animal equals and then brackets, and then, filled it in each time. But actually, what is happening here is this code that we executed so that for animal is just been a variable that was suddenly created. Boom, there's animal. Animal is going to take the value of the way that a for loop executes. And remember, a for loop goes, what's the first value? What's the second value? Third value, so on. So animal in my list, first it's cat, then it's dog, then it's goat. So I have a cat, I have a dog, I have a goat. Here's a tricky question. Assuming that this code was just run, what does animal equal? If I type in animal,
Animal does not exist.
what?
Still it will have the value, all the value.
So I've heard it's going to have all the values. I've heard it's going to have goat. Anyone else have thoughts?
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist? We got how to go. Give any consensus? Go. The two answers for go. Go is right. This variable is going to take whatever position we're at and iterating through in my list. And so at first, that value is cat, and then it's dog, right? Because it goes 4 animals. The first one is cat. You do this. Cool, I've completed this. Now I'm going to go back. The code says, let me go back to the for loop. Is there anything more in my list? There is. There's dog. And then it's going to go back and it's going to say, is there more of this cat? And it's going to go back and say, oh, no more. Finish. An animal retains the value of go. Keep going. So we'll define some functions when we, especially when we let's create. I don't think we're defining any functions today. But remember the example I gave of a function that added, I think it was what, 3 to everything? Or Joseph something? So the way you define a function is def function underscore name. So let's call this function Joseph underscore Nelson. And then it's going to take some values. And then once you pass those values, it's going to run those arguments on the values you've given it. This example is kind of tough to see because there's no real argument happening here, but you would have, Joseph plus 3. Run the function every time you pass it. I guess that's going to be static unless Joseph is a variable. Then it's going to put out Joseph plus 3. The other thing here is syntax of a function is defined by def, function name, parentheses. What we want it to do in variables is have to serve. So, next one. I did.
Yep, same.
Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. Next slide. That was cool. Next slide. Yeah, I mean, passing values with percentage signs operates like C. So I'm going to say like this. You got that, great. You did that. Next. Yeah. These are awesome. They're mutable objects because we can change them on the fly. And any type of object can be put into a list. So, next slide. Oh, I don't listen to that. Go back. Sorry. So, if we wanted to find a list, we would just say whatever the list is going to be equal to. So, table equals, and then empty brackets. And then we just define an empty list called table. Within those brackets, if you remember my list, you're going to add values. And those values, the way that they're written, are going to take that variable type and the way that we define them. So if we define them with quotes, they're going to be a string. If we just do 3, it's going to default to doing an integer. If we do 3.0, it's going to do a float. If we do true, it's going to be a list of Boolean variables. Kind of neat. So like, you guys, if you haven't coded in another language, you don't know how significant it is that Python automatically knows what variables you're talking about. That's like amazingly useful. It's kind of dangerous because it means you don't necessarily learn the ins and outs of variables because Python's just doing it for you. So like in Java, whenever you instantiate a variable, you can just declare what that variable type is. Whereas in Python, Python can infer. It knows you put quotes, therefore you provide strings. That's pretty significant. It makes it really accessible language. Next slide. Yeah, this is a way to parse. The important thing here is we're calling on the character or the variable piece, I suppose, at position 0. So Python says help, position 0, is H. Help from 0 to 2, OG. 2 to 4, LP. What if I did help, square bracket, 0, colon, square bracket? What would I get? The full word. Yeah. So what you just go by on is I want from position 0, colon, everything beyond it. The reason why that's really useful, or why you'll see it's very useful in the next 2 days, is let's say you've returned a data type from a website you're scraping, and every single time you return it, there's like, you only want the year, we'll say, okay? And the year, every single time, is stored as, let's say 2 numbers, like 07 would be 2007, 99 is 1999, but the date has other characters with it too. So September 1st, 2008 is going to be stored as 1/8/08, whereas December 1st, 2008 is going to be 12/1/08. So if I call for date and then a specific point within that date, it's not always going to be the year, right? Because if I called for the date and I had September, I would go from the 9 to the 1 to the 0 and the 8. The 0 and the 8 are positions 2 and 3, right? And if I did it with 12/1/08, the positions are now varied. 1 later, 3 and 4. So the way that I could consistently get the years would be what? How can I consistently get the years?
The last two.
Last 2. How would I write that?
-2.
Yeah, colon, yeah.
-2 colon.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you do. Yeah. You do it either that way, or I would prefer to do it from colon. Yeah. That's useful. And we'll do that in a second. Keep going. Keep going. We're not going to go over sets. It's less valuable. We talked about what a set is. We talked about what dictionaries are. So this would be like very simple. We know what dictionaries are. Keep going. We will do all of these. Keep going. And now we get to code. All right. So who did not get the chance to install? Yeah. Raise your hand. Okay, cool. And everyone else, can you download Anaconda 2.7? Okay. I'm gonna run through how to do it on my computer, so you all see, and then we'll have Megan, Myron, and Isaac walk around and help everyone who is not able to correctly download the file, install it, and run through what we're doing. Okay.
We have a pad. Yeah, line this way. Want to put it there? Am I going to be able to? Yes. Okay. Should we have set? Now let's see. Okay. I might have to get your pad. Yeah, it also works better like a little. Yeah, or what sheet paper. You want to do it next? Yeah, I mean, I just want to show folks. Yeah. So, for those who did not install, we're going to ask that you download this file, and then I'm going to jump right in because we're during part of the class time for the DAT 6101 class. And we'll just go straight through some coding examples. For those that do not have Anaconda installed, go to the link you see here. I mean, it's also in the doc I circulated. And if you have a Mac, of course, you want OS X. Do the graphical installer for OS X 64-bit. Download it. It's a large file, so it takes a bit of time. Yeah. So, all right. Everyone who has Anaconda already installed, and you're on a Mac, go ahead and open up or do Command plus Space to do your search. And then search for Launcher, Launcher. What you should see are people seeing this? Yes? No? Yeah? Open up Spider. Launch Spider. Okay. All right, the next thing of significance that you need to do is in the email that I circulated, where I originally sent you a Google Doc that you couldn't access. Open up that Google Doc, and within that Google Doc are all of the resources we are going to use for the remainder of the session. Session tomorrow as well, including the raw data you need, any libraries you need to import, and the code. Okay, so not everyone received my email. The thing that you download is open a file.
Is it this here? From the terminal to Spider. SPYDUR. Just SPYDUR launch it from terminal. It should.
So it turns out that those in the DAT 6101 class did not receive pre-class materials for one reason or another. So what we're going to do, I think the most efficient way to distribute this to everyone as possible is go to the Facebook event. Once you're on the Facebook event, I'll add it to the description. Can I get a show of hands from the data science 6101 class that's in there? Are all of you available to stay beyond your class time to do this kind of work? Yeah. Come on. Yeah, I mean, besides. That was like you.
We told them.
Yeah. So for those that can, I would highly recommend downloading this Pandas and trying to follow along. If you cannot stay till the end, then perhaps you want to watch the live stream.
They downloaded the Anaconda software as part of the Phoenix class.
Oh,
so I think the thing that they don't have is the Word document that has your content and tabs.
Oh, okay, great.
Byron's going to log into Blackboard and he's going to send that out to the class.
Okay, it's also on the Facebook event. I just posted it in the description.
Yeah. Either way, they're
Yeah.
going to have it.
Okay, good. Yeah, no worries.
So we figure out being able to.
I think you slow down.
No, I mean being able to code from the phone because I want to be able to speak to my friend.
Oh.
What?
Coding from the front.
Okay.
How do you want to do that? Do you want to stand up? We can get you a chair and you just do it there. And right. But how does it work? I'm not sure it works. It does. We just need a. So can you fix that sort of thing? Yeah. Oh, is this wireless? Yeah. So this is wireless. That is not. That is. Okay. So they try to. Okay. So does that work? Yeah. Right. Can you try to get more?
Yeah. So this is like the launcher that I'm going to the finder is like right code here.
Okay. I don't even know something. I'll just stand in the back. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Cool.
I'm still here.
Oh, does that work?
Yeah. It'll be in range.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work. Alright. Yeah, thank you. Okay. During the downtime, did anyone who did not have Anaconda start downloading it at the very least? Who does not have Anaconda downloaded and Spider open. You know that? What's that? You working on it? Anyone else? Raise your hands. We have people to help. It's fun. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else while we troubleshoot? I think you don't. No. Okay. So I think if you do not have Python good to go, Isaac or Byron will be able to circulate and help you out. And we have critical mass for everyone else. We'll jump right into it. So, if you saw in this Google document that I circulated, I also included the code for today for if we caught behind. So that's useful. Or sorry, that's tomorrow. Okay. Today's code. The next thing is these are the data sets that we're going to be working with. So copy those guys. All right. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be working within Pandas, a Python library that allows easy exploratory data analysis. We're going to import our data. We're going to understand our data set. We're going to do basic manipulations of that data set so we have a better idea of what exactly we're looking at. And we'll learn a bit about, say, filtering, sorting, mood lighting, and general tricks and tips that you can use within Pandas to better understand the data set. And in the process, we'll learn a bit about UFOs, world alcohol consumption, and I think IMDb is tomorrow. So get excited. Okay, so first and foremost, this is the syntax for importing a library, is import something. What I've done here is I've imported the library called Pandas, and then I've named it PD. So import Pandas as PD. To run a line of code. So I guess let me take one step back. Within our interactive development environment, you'll see 3 panes. The one on the left is where you write your code. The one on the bottom right is the console where you execute your code. And the
Yeah.
Yeah, same. So it's in the same.
The game was not working all of a sudden.
This file.
It's on pause.
It's on the desktop.
Okay, so this file's on the desktop too.
Pretty good.
Okay. So yeah,
Check
can you
it
just
out.
like
Follow
copy
the
that line? That'll include the strings object.
Really? Here, let me, I did it like in the last one. I was just like briefly following through, but
Yeah, just do drinks.
as PG. Let's see where the other file is.
Dot. Yeah, notice it has, you can like kind of arrow down. I would go read CSV versus yeah. And then open parentheses. And like drinks. That's CSV.
Yeah, so you actually make this a problems with that part. I mean, it's kind of copy and paste what we did above, just with a new data frame name. Now, this next part. I want to print the beer serving series. We had a question of, what's the difference between line 94 and line 95? They give me the same output. So why would I do one over the other? The answer is a bit of nuance. So let's envision that I had a data set where the column was named beer space servings. Right? How would I execute line 95? I couldn't, because I would do drinks.beer space servings. And I'd be telling my data frame, look for the column drinks.beer. It would say, that doesn't exist. So line 94 guarantees that you can work with columns that may have a space in them. Did you have a question about importing a data frame? Did you succeed? Okay, let me help you. Or let me get someone to help you. Yeah, I'll keep going, but it's important that. Yeah. No, we're not.
That's his instruction stuff. That's our activity to try to work the ethics test. And drinks ahead should work. And then yeah. What your setting looks like? It doesn't. Oh, console over here.
Do your air from the shop. Just trying to get it. Use your neighbors, I guess. Okay. So let's keep going. The exercises get a bit more interesting, a bit more challenging. So calculate the mean beer servings. If you recall, we can do describe, which does have a mean return value in it, but it also has all this other stuff too. It does every column, and it does the mean, standard deviation, the min, the 25% quartile, and so on, the max. So I could do drinks.beer underscore servings mean. Bam. Let's say for this one, number of occurrences of each continent, and see if it looks correct. So this is an important lesson here. So when we do this, are we all with me here on this part of the exercise, generally? So when we do this, we get the output of AF, EU, AS, OC, SA. Does something seem missing from our continents? What's AF?
I'm just redoing it. Just
Africa, EU, Europe, AS, Asia, OC, Oceania, SA,
Windows, yeah.
South America. Does anything seem funny from our world alcohol consumption, from the World Health Organization data frame?
Yes, I got it.
What's missing? And yeah, North America, right? We don't have North America. Why do you think we don't have it? Maybe it's too large to calculate. Maybe we broke Python. Maybe. What's that? What's that? Maybe maybe our data set has Okay, grouped together in another category, perhaps. What's that? Louder. Louder.
Do you treat NA as 0?
It treats NA as 0. Right? So we imported this data set, and Pandas was like, yo, you got a bunch of NAs in here. Nothing there. Nothing there. So we're going to have to deal with that later on in this exercise. Right? Okay. So filtering and sorting. We'll do a bit of this. The bonus exercises are there for fun. Great fun. So we're going to go back to our users data set. And you see we can do some basic filters and sorts and that type of stuff. So we're going to define a variable called young bool. Okay? Young bool. Kind of like a bad rapper. So young bool equals users.age under 20. So any user who is, or anyone in our data frame who's aged under 20 is going to be included in our variable called young bool. So let's do that. And then let's check it out. So you'll see in the variable explorer, we now have this thing, young bool. And it's a collection of what variable? You had it. One or 0? Maybe. But there's a specific data type in Python. Boolean. Yeah. Which is true or false. So kind of like 1s and 0s. So let's check that out.
Yes. So 0, 1, true, false.
So when we ask for users and young bool, we get all of the users where the age is, look at that, less than 20. And then with that, we can tack on, we can ask for the occupation of people that are less than 20, right? So dot occupation. Lots of students, perhaps predictably. And then critically, look at this, dot occupation, dot value counts. Now we're actually getting some useful insights. We now have a data frame, or we're about to find out all of the users in our data frame that are under 20 and a count of each of their listed occupations. Bam, student, 64, other, 4. I wonder what those 4 others are doing. None, writer. I like none better than other. So we can also apply multiple filters at the same time. The syntax for that is pretty important. You'll notice that we did the square brackets, users square bracket, just like we're calling for any given column. And then within those square brackets, round parentheses for each condition and another condition. So we have users aged under 20 and gender equals M. And you'll notice that when we ask for equals M, double equal signs. So what is this going to give us? Men who are under 20. Oops. We can do pipe for or. Same story. Okay, sorting. We can order a column in ascending values, default ascending values, right? What's really significant about sorting values is that when you want to say make a scatter plot, You want to sort both the columns that you're scattering so that they go from like low to high simply, if that makes sense. So you have the collection of the minimum of one value, the minimum of another value, adjacent as a data point. And you would plot all those data points and have a scatter plot. That's one great use for ordering. So sort, and we can make them be descending because we said ascending should be false. All right, this next exercise is a bit more challenging and therefore a bit more interactive, a bit more fun, hopefully. So we're going to filter drinks to only include European countries. All right. Work on these exercises. If you can do these exercises, then you're in a great place for doing exploratory data analysis. It makes the values descending. There you go. So filter drinks only include European countries.
Oh.
Shit. Shit.
Anyone have an idea of how we would do that? Square.
The lines are all kind of right, just because in front of it there's a pound sign. That means it's a comment. So that's not the code itself. That's the instructions to tell you like what your code should do. Yeah, it's all
It usually helps to organize.
Yeah, it should be a comment. So if we put the pound sign in front of it.
So we're actually not going to be doing sorting.
Oh, okay.
We're actually sort is automatically like arranging them a specific way.
Describing
It's not
what
just like
you want.
it's not like literally sorting.
So
Like you don't say sort every time you want only some. You can call for only some by just saying the name of the some.
So we can see
Getting there.
countries
Um,
and the continent. Anywhere there. Okay, so now we and then and then the square brackets, which is this guy. Yeah. This bracket. And then we want to EU is a string, so
There.
Oh.
so like take a look.
Got it.
And then end. There you go.
Thoughts? Someone be brave.
We did EU drinks equals parentheses drinks have content equals.
So drinks. Or you? Oh, you made a new variable. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. EU drinks.
Yeah. Equals parentheses drinks dot content equals quotation marks EU.
So something about this.
Ours did something.
Yeah. So something about this is that's very close. What you need to do. Why did you add the parentheses?
That was just
assume.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean. Oh, I see. I see. Yeah. So. Yeah. The way that we're going to do this is data frame drinks. We want a column. That's what the square bracket says. Which column do we want? We want the column drinks.continent, but only when drinks.continent is EU. You guys follow that? What about the next one? Similar, very, very similar. We're working with the data frame drinks, and we want two conditions, right? So let's break this one down. We're saying we want drinks. We're working with our data frame drinks. Within that data frame, we're calling for a specific column. That's what these square brackets indicate. And we want two conditions for the values that are returned. The first is only EU countries. So we can say round brackets, only EU, another round bracket, and round bracket, the wine servings, drinks.wine servings, exceed 300. Yeah.
Oh, that line. That is not a comment. In
The mean year serving be very similarly.
I'm used to that. Yeah.
We're working with the data frame drinks.
See.
We're going to want one specific column within drinks. So
Yes,
square bracket,
it's imported but not used,
drinks,
which is fine.
square bracket, drinks.continent is EU. So now we have, at this stage, we need to break down these statements, right? At this stage, I want the beer serving column. And what do I want to do with that column? I want the mean. So different, added together, different functions within Pandas to parse down our data to get the mean European Union beer serving. Determine which 10 countries have the highest total pure liters consumption of pure alcohol. So this one's kind of tricky, right? I need to sort my list so that I can get a top 10 list somehow. And I only want the top 10, in fact. So what I've done is I've said, drinks.sort. I know I'm sorting because I need an ordinal list. That's the tricky thing about this one. I need an ordinal list of some kind. The ordinal list that I need is one where the total liters of pure alcohol is sorted from, remember, default sorts in ascending values. So at this stage, I have sorted the total liters of pure alcohol into ascending values. And then I say 10, which gives me the last 10. Alternatively, I could have said descending equals false. And then said 10 with 10 values. If that makes sense. We won't go over the bonus, but is everyone relatively on board with that, what we did there? It default does ascending. So if you want to do ascending, you have to tell it when you sort that ascending is false. And then we'll do descending. We went through the bonus ones. We'll keep rolling. Okay. Renaming, adding columns, that type of thing. Yeah, what's up?
Is there a way of like telling it instead of having like drinks.constant, drinks.wine serving, just to know
No, because it needs to know which data frame from which you're working, and you can't set a default data frame. Did you have a question? Hatman. What's your name? Evan? Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay. So creating and
shouldn't have to worry that their children will be harassed, humiliated, even shot because of the color of their skin. Immigrant families shouldn't have to lie awake at night listening